to get men to rise up to their biblical responsibility and biblical manhood. We're told about a lame man in Acts chapter 3. The description of the man is given in verse 2. We're told a number of things about this man. First of all, we are told that he is lame. He's a cripple. But we're told he was a cripple from his mother's womb. So ever since he was born, he's been crippled. That means he was not able to stand on his own 2 feet. And it's hard to man up if you can't even stand up. He couldn't stand on his own 2 feet, and according to chapter 4, verse 22, the man is 40 years old. So for half of a lifetime, this man was not able to stand up on his own. He was lame from his mother's womb. Now, we don't know all of his sociological conditions, although we will get a hint. But we do know he had to be poor because he was a beggar. We don't know whether daddy was in the picture or not because only the mother is mentioned. But we do know this. Ever since he was born, he was not able to stand up, so he was never able to man up. And that was a lifetime condition because he's now 40 years old. We're told the second thing about this man. We're told that his whole life depended upon what other folk did for him. Because it says every day he was carried by other folk to beg. See, you know you lame when everybody else has got to take care of you because you're not man enough to take care of yourself. When everybody else has got to bring you to where you need to go because you're not able to get there on your own. So every day it says every single day somebody had to carry him to beg. So we know another thing about him, he's a beggar. That means he's living on tips. He wants other people to put something in his can or something in his jar or something in his hat so he could survive another day, because we know he only got enough to live one day at a time. He's a beggar. So he's lame from his mother's womb. He can't stand up. Everybody's got to carry him to where he wants to go next. He's living on tips. And what's interesting about verse 2 is he was at the church house every day. It says he went to the gate called Beautiful that was at the temple. So here he was, lame from his mother's womb, not able to stand up, a beggar. Everybody else had to take care of him because he wasn't man enough to take care of himself due to his condition. And he was at church every single day at the gate called Beautiful, which lets me know you can be a man at church and never change. And you can be at the church house every single day and still wind up to be a lame man, not able to stand up on your own 2 feet, because even though he was at church, nothing had changed in his life. We are living in a day when far too many men are lame. They may not be physically lame. They may be able to physically stand out, but that's not the only kind of lameness. There is mental lameness, where the man is not able to have the cognitive capacity to take on his manly responsibility. There is social lameness, where men are expecting the government to do what God has called them to do. There is spiritual lameness, where the woman has got to lead the devotions, has got to pray with the kids because he's too lame to take the time to be the spiritual head of his home. See, lameness can come in all shapes and sizes, but it all bears the same characteristic. And that is, somebody else has got to do for you what you will not do and choose not to do for yourself, even if you're spending time at the church house. And so we find this man in this physical condition, but it's put in this passage to make the spiritual point that he was not able to make it on his own. Whatever the cause, whatever the influence, He was not man enough to stand up in order to man up. And so as a result of that, everybody else had to take care of him, and he was living as a beggar. So that's our circumstance. I am certain even here today, there are folk who are lame. I was visiting my father in Baltimore. My brother and I used to exchange times going back and forth to see him and to take care of him. And I looked all around me. I saw lame men in droves. Men who were 40 years old, 50 years old, 60 years old, still in the same space I left them 40 years ago. They were lame because they had not taken responsibility. I saw myriads of single mothers walking up and down the street, children sired by a man who disappeared. And he refused to take responsibility for the children that they had sired, leaving a whole community. I asked my dad, I said, Dad, how are all these people making it? Because it's by the mega thousands. And my dad said, all of them are on welfare. All of them are depending on the government because they're unable to take care of themselves, and the men are nowhere to be found. But you don't have to be in a city just to be lame. You can be lame in the suburbs. You just can cover it up with some money, houses, clothes, and cars. Because if you still do not take the divinely ordained responsibility that God has given every man to have by virtue of his created purpose when he created men, then you just become a lame man with some fineries in your life. But that's our situation. Our situation is that we've got a man who cannot stand up on his own 2 feet and fulfill the responsibilities that he is responsible to take care of. And now he's living on his own crumbs and his own begging. So that's the circumstance. But now we enter 2 other men. Verse 1 says, Peter and John were going into the temple at the 9th hour, that's 3 p.m., the hour of prayer. So now enter 2 other men, Peter and John. Peter and John are going at 3 o'clock in the afternoon to pray. Now that's going to be important in a second. They are taking their lunch hour, if you will, to go into the house of prayer, into the temple, to connect with the living and true God. On their way in, they pass by the lame man. And then the story unfolds.
And we'll hear that story when Dr. Evans returns in a moment to continue our message. Stay with us. The world